Prime Minister, thank you for coming this afternoon.
What does Global Britain mean to you?
Global Britain means a United Kingdom that is playing a full role on the world stage. It has various elements to it. Part of it is the trading relationships that we want to develop around the world. Another part is us continuing to play our role in multilateral institutions around the world, so continuing to play our role in the United Nations, playing our role in NATO, in the commitments on defence and security that we give, and being an upholder of the values that underpin our society and democracy here in the United Kingdom.
Your National Security Advisor specifically cited only the other day to the Joint Committee on National Security Strategy the three elements are investing in partnerships, strengthening the rules-based system and boosting prestige. Today, with the reports that so many of Her Majesty's ships are alongside, the boosting prestige does seem to be rather in concern.
Well, I would say just look at what we're doing around the world and what our armed forces are doing around the world. Our Royal Navy is in the Mediterranean, continuing to save lives in the Mediterranean, and we've committed, as I did at the EU Council last week, to continuing to be in the Mediterranean as long as is necessary. Our Air Force and the work that's been doing in the coalition we've been doing in the coalition in Iraq and Syria, for example. And just last week at the Sun Military Awards, I was pleased to present an award to Operation Rumen, representatives of Operation Rumen, which was the Joint Services Award, of course, led by the Navy, which went in and gave support to our overseas territories and others after the hurricanes in the Caribbean. I think people see a United Kingdom around the world that is playing its role. Of course, commitments we've made on defence are an important part of this, so also our commitment to maintain the 0.7% of GNI being spent on aid. I think that shows a United Kingdom with commitments around the world.
And what do you see us doing to increase the rules-based system?
I think that is something that we're doing in a number of ways. I think part of that is about working with those countries, working to encourage, persuade those countries who currently take action which are against the rules-based system to sign up to an international order, which is that rules-based system. I think it's about the contributions we make in a number of international bodies to uphold the rules-based system, be that, as I said, within the United Nations or indeed in other bodies that we're party of.
May I ask which nations might be your priorities, and when are you going to publish, or get the relevant departments perhaps rather, to publish your priorities on exactly these areas?
Well, in terms of the overall response that we have as the United Kingdom and Global Britain, of course, we have priorities in a number of parts around the world, but in different ways around various parts of the world.
And may I switch to Europe, if I may? You cited, of course, the deep and special partnership that I know many of us hope for. May I ask, you've spoken a little bit, or rather the government has spoken a little bit about the relationship with CFSP and CSDP. Could you highlight how you see us playing our role in those two organisations, or whether we have a role in those two organisations?
Well, I think, if I may, I would describe it in a slightly different way. I think what we want to continue to do as part of the Deep and Special Partnership is, of course, continue to be able to be discussing with and contributing to these issues of foreign policy and defence. We've said we're unconditionally committed to maintaining European security. We will do that. Obviously, we play a key role in NATO in doing that, but would also look to the possibility of being involved in some agreements that take place in Europe. I mean, PESCO, for example, which was launched on the European Council last week, we're not party to that, but there is a possibility on particular operations for other countries to be involved in that. On the foreign policy side, I think this is, we would want to continue to be able to work with the countries in the European Union 27 on key issues that are of importance to us. One of the areas, for example, that the UK has been very clear, as I said in my statement on Monday, that we've led on, is the need for sanctions in relation to Russia. So there are issues like that where we would want to be continuing to work with others to ensure that we're upholding the values that we continue to share as Europeans.
And you rightly highlighted our structured cooperation through organisations like NATO as part of guaranteeing our security and European security. would you agree that we require structured cooperation in terms of alongside the EU in order to make sure that our sanctions regimes are as effective as they should be?
Well, of course, one of the things that we will be doing as we look at legislation in relation to the position that will apply to the United Kingdom once we come out of the European Union is obviously to make sure, precisely to put forward legislation to ensure we are able to apply sanctions.
But that's our own sanctions. I meant being structured alongside others.
Yes, but the point I'm making is that if we're not in the European Union, we won't necessarily be party of that regime, but we will be putting in place a regime that would enable us to ensure that we are putting sanctions in place where we agree that it's appropriate to do so. Just as, today we obviously put sanctions in place, not just that are applied by the European Union, but also United Nations sanctions. Thank you.